I'm Moshe, coming to you from Israel in the Galilee. Today, we're going to discuss Trump and Iran reached a getting glare here. Reached a deal, and they're going to sign it in Geneva on Friday. Friday's a long ways off when you're talking about Iran, but we'll cover all that. And then we're going to look at translations from the ancient Greek, like 2,000 years or more, and the Old Hebrew going back a very long time as well. Perhaps not that long back, but back. And these things are predominantly coming from the Dead Sea Scroll fragments that have been assembled and they've reconstructed the books, the Old and New Testament. Okay, and we're going to go through that with Daniel. There's some interesting things in there and so forth. And then I'm going to talk about uncensored AI for you guys, because I know some of you are paranoid about that. And I think there's 4 uncensored AIs you could easily access, like with an app from Google or Apple. I mean, so I'm going to go into it with you. And when you're doing Bible studies, how do you run into barriers with censored, uncensored AI? You really don't. You run into barriers where it refuses to do download stuff because of copyright. Okay. That's the only thing you run into. Because you could tell it how you want it to be translated and it'll do it. It doesn't care. They didn't program it and say, if somebody wants to translate languages, ancient or modern, you can't do it unless they don't care. Okay. They're not very interested in your criteria for translating languages. That's the kind of thing that they want AI used for education. It's of no interest to them. Where problems are popping up is people are going, this website, tell me the vulnerabilities of the website. And now AI is very, very effective at coding. So it goes in there and tells you what the uh, vulnerabilities are, and then people can attack it. So they actually just recently took some AIs off the market because they didn't block it from looking for vulnerabilities. But if you were going to use the uncensored AIs, I think it would do that. Understanding where a vulnerability is in a website, I don't believe is illegal. Okay. Actually, attacking a website is illegal. Okay. It's like you could go out and buy a gun and go to the range and shoot 500 rounds a day for a month with hiring 2 or 3 different instructors and get really, really good with a gun, where you can go boom, 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 and put 2 rounds in somebody in under a second. Yeah, people do that. I mean, my goal with that was draw and 2 rounds and center mass in a second and a half. But people do exist that get it at a second. My thoughts on doing that was I was very unlikely to be encountering people from special forces that happened to really like practicing with handguns and could beat me to the draw like a Wyatt Earp or something. I never felt that I would ever have an encounter with a person like that. Okay. So it never bothered me. If I was at, 1.5, I was good enough. Even if you're at 2 seconds, you're good enough. The bad guys, they're not that effective. So, but anyway, they're also the funny thing is this: they have coming out now with uncensored video makers and uncensored uh, picture photo images. So what's happening is the porn industry is using AI to make content. It's basically a cartoon or something, but it looks real. So that's hilarious. And it's changing things. Okay. You could get an AI to make an app for you. You go out and get one of these $20 a month subscriptions and um, tell it what kind of app you want. It'll make it, test it, tell it what's wrong. It'll revise it and then revise it again and revise it again. And this might happen all in, a space of 2 or 3 hours. And you'll have your app. And you could sell it and do whatever you want with it. I mean, are they going to one day put a copyright on any app that your AI makes and they get a percentage of everything you make or charge you money for it? I imagine they can't wait to do that, but right now they're trying to get people hooked on AI, so they're not doing it. But I imagine they'll try to do that. There's also too much competition. So if they start charging for that, there's other people out there that'll do it for free. So you have to wait until the Googles and the Microsoft and those people of the world put a monopoly on it, like they did with email programs, like they did with search engines, and knock out. But there's always search engines that aren't going to follow the rules of Google. See what I'm saying? So there's always going to be AIs that aren't going to follow the rules of the big people, okay? Um, and they'll try to control legislate. Look, I remember years ago, people like what did they call it? AOL. You never hear AOL anymore. When was the last time you saw somebody with an AOL email address? I don't know. I imagine a bunch of people still use it because they think it's safe or something, but people are more into Facebook. And I imagine AOL is still kicking. But they were trying to do what the Federal Reserve Bank did and what the railroads did. They went to Congress, and the railroads back in the Jesse James days got the right to create railroad police that worked for the railroad. They were private employees, they didn't work for the government, and they had police powers. And this goes on today. I knew guys. They'd have a a badge wallet where on one side you'd have your photo ID card, on the other side you'd have your metal badge. Usually in the badge wallet they use a flat badge. They don't have a curved, you know. And but the leather is real thick, usually like that, so you can't put a curved badge in there. Okay, and it lays flat. And they you take the pin that you would use to put in the two holes on your shirt, your uniform shirt, and they got a thing in there where you run the pin through there and it stays in. And they have police powers, and to get the police powers in some states, maybe all the states now, they have to fulfill the requirements to join a local police department. So they got to go to an academy for so many hours and pass. And um, I think the only records check that they need is to be no criminal record. Maybe they want to check their credit and I don't know, social media, or I don't know, but they have full police powers. I mean, they exist today. There's loads of them. They're on Amtrak. They're on a lot of places. Private enterprise having their own private police. Okay. And the Federal Reserve Bank has the same thing, but it's even worse. They're not they're not the government, they're private. and they have. I mean, they got guys that are bodyguards for them. It's the same thing. They're working for a private entity called the Federal Reserve Bank, and they have badges and credential. But because the word federal is in there, most people, if you went to them and said, "Yeah, excuse me, are you Mary Doe? My name is Officer so and so with the Federal Reserve Bank," and they would think you're a government employee. 90% of the people probably would. But not with the railroads. Well, I don't know if you said you were with Amtrak, but I mean, it says railroad police. Um, so I knew some of these guys that generally they're pretty nice people. I knew two of them. That's about it. Did I know a third? Maybe. I don't know. Probably two. They're pretty nice people. I didn't. I thought they were okay guys. But anyway, this still goes on today. So Google and AOL and these people wanted their own police force. So if you violated the terms of service at AOL was the one that initially was pushing it. If you violated the terms of service at AOL, it would be a criminal act. And you'd hear, "Who is it?" AOL police, lay down on the floor and spread your hands to the side and don't move. I Can you imagine that? What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Well, you were in this chat and you were typing obscene comments. That's a violation of AOL code 2134, chapter F, verse 4. So you have to come with us. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used. And they do this, right? And that's what they were trying to do. But the government was afraid to take things that far. I don't know if this stuff goes on in other countries or not. One thing that a lot of people don't know is many, many countries in the world, including Israel, do not allow private detectives. They don't exist. They're not allowed to do it. That's to protect the rich and famous. If you wanted to send a private detective to find out about some gangbanger in a gang that's dating your daughter or something like that, or wants to date your daughter, or you think the guy's going to go into the ghetto and the gang and try to find the guy and ask questions about him and stuff like that. He'll disappear. He won't be alive. Not if he goes into their territory. They'll just kill him. uh they'll talk to him, they'll warn him, and then they'll just say, "Okay, your choice." And then the guy won't know what hit him. Somebody who doesn't know anything about that, he doesn't know from a hole in the hole, will walk by him and two in the back of the head, and just keep walking, and it'll be done. Cameras will be disabled. And, it's a joke. So yeah, we're going to talk about the uncensored AI, which might feel better to some people. Okay. AI is not taking over the world, guys. All right, I'm going to go into the live stream here and make sure things are good. And things look good. Uh oh. I was breaking up. Oh, it's okay now. It's not. It's probably echo or something. Okay. Um, Thank you for all the kind greetings, everybody. Yeah, somebody in here was saying they're 14 years old. They blocked that person. I don't believe it was a 14-year-old. I purchased a sling stone. I must learn how to use it. It ain't that easy. YouTube videos will show you. You got to be careful when you practice, and you might want to buy a cheap used football helmet at one of those used clothing toy stores where people contribute to the charities. uh you might make sure you don't get yourself in the head, uh and get one with a face shield. That's how people practice with real nunchuckers when they get learning, is you well I did it without it, but people would sometimes wrap a towel around the head or put a motorcycle or football helmet on. You could buy a cheap used one in case you hit yourself in the head. You wouldn't hit yourself flinging the stone, you'd hit yourself spinning it around. So you might want to consider that. Okay, let me get a post up, which is going to take seconds, not minutes. Almost done. Done. Let me check for typos. Now let me pin it. And that worked. No problem. Okay, being a Bible believing site, I'm going to do some praise, and we're going to get into Daniel. What I did with yesterday is I worked on the old on a Septuagint named Sweet's the guy, Swete, who did it. That's the dude's name. Late 1880s. He basically took the fragments. He worked with the fragments. Um, from the Dead Sea. Well, no, he was before the Dead Sea Scrolls. No, he worked with the uh, Codex uh, Vaticanus, which goes back to about 300 AD or CE, they call it. He worked with that, and he used some other things to fill in the gaps. And he was using the fragments from the Dead Sea Scrolls of the actual Greek Septuagint, the real one that went back to 250 BC, before Christ. So it was about 250 years before Yeshua came to Israel on earth. And he also spent some time in Egypt, yes, as a child. And he put this together. So it's basically a text that's over 2,000 years old. And there's another work where somebody put the actual Greek meanings of the words in, so you could see each word. I'll show you what it looks like. I'll put it on the screen. You'll see how it works. And it was done as what's referred to in seminary in terms a critical work to criticize the English New and Old Testaments. But basically, we're going to be working with the Old Testament today, and you'll see the real meaning of the words from the Greek, and we could also get the real meanings of the Hebrew too. and you'll see where the King James goes off the track. Now, there's so many English Bibles. When I kick against them, I just generally kick against the King James. There's practically no, or there is no, um, published Bible sold by Christian publishers that kicks against the King James, which is basically so much like the Tyndale and the Wycliffe. Okay. So they're all basically giving you the same kind of doctrines. Honestly, when I read them, I don't think these people know beans about the Hebrew. I don't think that. I think they just copied the previous translators. There's only two of these older Septuagints running around. One is Sweet, Swete. That's the name of the guy. Okay. I don't remember his front names. That's his last name. And the other one is the one used by Sir Lancelot Brenton, which is a real living, breathing piece of garbage. Uh, it's so bad. That translation is simply an abomination. And he didn't use the same manuscript. He didn't work the same way as Sweet. He used a Septuagint that was derived from Latin, and that was derived from the ones that put things into Latin was the Catholic Church. So the underlying text for that Septuagint is a piece of lying junk in Latin from the Catholic Church, and then it went from there to Greek, and then he translated it from Greek, and he just twisted it. You see, amongst the people that study these old texts, they've created their own term for the corruption in the English translations. I'm serious. There's must be going back about 150, 180 years. There must be about 10 or 15 guys that really worked hard at trying to show the people where the English translations went astray. And they call it smoothing. Then what does smoothing means is the church takes the real translation and smooths it over. In other words, twists it to match the traditions, practices, and teachings of the church. Now, all the Christian publishing houses that publish this stuff in English are only going to give you the smoothed out versions. Otherwise, the church will blacklist that Christian publishing house and tell their people not to trust it, and they'll have to go out of business. So your Zondavins, your Hendricksons, your this, your that are always going to sell translations and works related to translations and commentaries that match the church teachings. They're not going to discredit the church because the church is their market, and they're not going to go and say, well, this church got this wrong and they got that wrong. So it caused a lot of researchers to pop up with critical texts. Now, the crazy thing about all this is the seminaries themselves. I don't know how many they have. They might have 40 or 50 in the country, or I don't know. They have different kinds of students. Some students go in there and they want to be a music pastor or a youth pastor or I don't know, or just be a pastor, or they want to be a Christian church psychologist, and all kinds of things, right? And they go there and they get a cursory lesson in Greek, which is, one semester or one trimester, and it basically teaches them how to use the Greek language tools and understand the Greek alphabet, and they teach them how to look a few. That's about it. Okay. And some of them, I don't even know if they have to take Greek and Hebrew. And they do the same thing with Hebrew. Now, there's other kinds of characters that go there and they're not interested in running a church on Sunday morning. They want to be scholars. They work at universities like Cambridge and Harvard and Princeton, and they work at the seminaries where they get a job teaching Bible to the seminarians, and they have learned Greek and Hebrew to a serious level. Like they might take 4 or 5 courses in it. Now, they're generally not very interested in speaking it, okay? And they generally have no interest in writing it. Handwriting in Hebrew looks extremely different than the printed text. So there would be no value for them to learn how to handwrite, uh, Hebrew. And there would be no value for them to understand how to speak it with the, and all that, the chet. They wouldn't bother with that. So they're just looking at reading the printed Hebrew, which in the old text the scribes did, was like printed Hebrew, not like script Hebrew, handwriting. And they and interpreting what that means. And that's what they learn. The same with the Greeks. So they could get a streamlined education in it, so to speak, right? Modern Hebrew isn't going to get you that far with the Hebrew text, okay? It'd be like you speak English, go read the Wycliffe or the Tyndale. You're going to stumble through it, and there'll be words you may not be sure of, and the spelling is different, and all kinds of things. The grammar and it could be off. So But the thing that's funny about this is they have the real good source texts. They have the Dead Sea Scroll fragments put together to reconstruct the Hebrew Bible and the Greek Bible, and they have the work of the scholars that discredit the English translations, okay, and show you why. Uh, that's interesting because the people in the seminaries know what the Bible really says, which I'm going to show you today in the book of Daniel. They really know it, but they don't do anything about it. You draw your own conclusions as to that. I'm just going to show you the facts. Just sticks to the facts, ma'am. Stick to the facts. Well, we're going to stick to the facts. Okay. So we're going to do that. So let's talk about what old Trump did and what Netanyahu did and how we can possibly look at everything prophetically with Iran and stuff like that. Okay. So Trump reached a deal with the Iranians. It appears the Iranians are acknowledging that, and so is Trump. It appears this way. Now, we've seen this before where it looks like there was a deal and then it falls apart. Okay. So I don't know if there really is a deal. Okay. Um, it looks good, but we got to wait. When it's signed, it's signed. Remember that with the Iranians. The Iranians will jerk Trump's chain around. They'll just play with him, and they'll change their mind at the last minute, or they'll postpone it, or something like that. And what they're really doing, I've lived in Israel many years, and I tell you right now, if you don't live here in the Middle East, you don't understand how it works. You just don't. Okay, Fox News and the New York Post and the Wall Street Journal, they don't know. Okay, what they know is somebody lives in the Middle East will tell them how it works, but they won't really comprehend it. Okay, it's weird. It's not. It doesn't work the way Russia and Ukraine work or the way Europe works. It doesn't even work the way Asia works, or South America, or Africa. It's rather unique. Okay. Some of the Muslim states in Africa are probably reasonably similar. So what really is the deal here? Well, oh, my eye is itching. I don't know why. I put some eye drops in before. That must be it. Um, okay, so the Iranians see weakness in Trump, and they got him this far, and they're probably talking about he's all high. We're going to sign the deal Friday. Why did they wait till Friday to sign the deal? All they had to do was get it sent to them, in Iran, sign it, and have it sent back using some embassies and airplanes and stuff. So, they could have signed it Tuesday easily. Well, because Trump wants to have a big party celebration in Geneva and shake hands and a photo op, and he's going to try to take credit for being the peacemaker and why he should get the Nobel Prize. He's after the Nobel Prize. All right. Um, they're going to want more money and they're going to want more concessions. Okay. Why are they saying they're going to end the blockade in 30 days? Why not 3 days? What's wrong? See, now, the other thing in the Quran, it tells the people that follow the Quran that if they can gain position or get a good gain, it's a good idea to make treaties with the enemy, the non Muslim enemies, and then break them when it comes to your advantage. Okay. So, you got to be careful. I haven't seen or heard of a treaty that Iran ever made since 1979 where they didn't break it. So the odds of them breaking this are probably in the high 90s, like 99, percent. Um, they're going to get $12 billion of their money released for signing it. I don't think it's coming before the signing because Trump's not that stupid. I think if they did it before, they'd keep the 12 billion and then tell Trump they're not signing. So probably right at signing, he'll send them or release the $12 billion. There's about 100 billion of their money being held. There's not that much to do with this. Basically says the fighting is going to stop, the Persian Gulf is going to open up, and Israel's going to stop fighting in Lebanon. We're going to talk about that. And that's it. And they're going to stop fighting for 60 days, during which they're going to negotiate. And Trump has an agenda that completely doesn't match their agenda. Trump wants an end to the nuclear material that they already have, the high content of uranium, the enriched uranium, and they don't want to give it up. So that's a big stumbling block. Trump wants them to stop supporting proxies that create turmoil in the Middle East, like the Houthis shut the Red Sea, right? Like Hamas attacks Israel, like Hezbollah attacks Israel, things like this, right? Okay. Um, they want that to end, which Iran's not interested in that. Okay. They want some controls on their ballistic missiles. Iran's not interested in that. And they want restrictions on them making uranium in the future. And Iran's not interested in that. So, what do I think that's going on? I would say not 98%, 85%, 90%. Iran is taking advantage of another 60 days. They're getting money. They're going to probably get another 12 billion out of Trump during the negotiations. That's a good amount of money for Iran, $24 billion. Okay. The sanctions are going to be lifted during these 60 days so they can get more money by selling oil. Okay. They want this whole thing going to the United Nations Security Council being ratified by the UN. So if Trump breaks the deal, they could go back to the UN and say Trump's in violation. The chances of this ever happening are pretty small because if Trump tries to push something through the UN that's seriously going to help the world, Russia and China will veto it. And if Iran tries to push something through that favors what they want, which is terrorism continuing, the Trump will and the UK will probably veto it. Okay. Um, and that's not going to happen. So what about the UN snapback sanctions? Well, I think they could go and vote and get those removed, but that would require Trump not vetoing it. And on the other side of the fence, it would require China and Russia not vetoing it. So it's pretty weird. That could happen, though. So, what happens in the 60 days? Iran continues to fortify and make new missile cities, make new missiles, make new drones, get more radar from China, build more weapons, build up their proxies if needed, and get ready for the fallout in 60 days. Iran will not let this thing come to a conclusion in 60 days because they know that they can get at least 30 or 60 days extra out of Trump because he's weak. He is weak. And that's a long period of time, and Iran's going to build a lot of weapons. And they said just before this, the war is going to be on American soil, not in Iran anymore. That means they're going to launch missiles. I do not believe they can create a missile that will travel from Iran to America. I could be wrong, but I don't think Russia has that either. I don't think anybody has the capability of guiding a missile across the ocean with any kind of accuracy. I don't know how they would do it. They can't optically read the ocean like they can roads and the terrain that doesn't change. The ocean changes every few seconds. They can't. That's a problem. They could try running a missile across using some sort of compass and try to determine where it is and guide it that way. I don't know if they could do it. I don't think anybody can do it with any degree of accuracy myself, but uh, maybe they could. And I don't know how accurate it would be. I think it would be horribly inaccurate. But as a terrorist weapon, all they got to do is get it to go over land and then send it down anywhere to blow up. And that would be scary enough. Uh, and could they make one that go, I don't know, what is it, 6,000 miles or something to reach the United States? Well, I don't know. Do I think they can? My really, no, I don't think they can. It would have to be a massive missile. So you're probably looking at something that's 60 feet and probably about that thick, 3 feet thick, maybe four. It would have to have stages. I think it would be a 3-stage job. And I don't know how many of those they can make. I mean, 10 or 12 would be a lot to make over a year. I mean, I don't know. What I think they're going to do is modify more boats like container ships and oil tankers and grain tankers and things like that to make them look like civilian vessels, but they launch missiles. And then they get the boat near America, which could be, you know, 225 miles or something like that. I don't think America really watches ships at a distance of less than 100 miles. And I don't think they really can control ships unless they come within 25 miles. So, yeah, Iran has missiles that'll go 1,200 miles, even maybe 1,400. So, yeah, they don't have to get that close. They could be 400 or 500 miles offshore from America and launch. Okay. And the boat would have radar, but I don't think it would have long range radar. I don't know how they would manage to get that to work, but they could probably figure that out. Great accuracy, I'm not thinking they would have, but enough to hit a city. It wouldn't be like, he can't hit a barn from inside, with a bullet. Well, that's a joke, of course, but it wouldn't be that bad. So they did hit Port Arthur uh, twice, I believe. Somebody hit it, and it would likely be them. Hold on, I heard a door, and I think the dog is messing with the door or something. Hold on. Are you here? Oh, okay. I thought it was the dog. Sorry. So, if this thing ever does get signed Friday, remember they may just be creating another ploy for um, pushing negotiations forward in their favor with Trump. It might not be that they really intend to go through with this on Friday. They're just going to push him. He announces it, and then he's not going to want to go back and say, oh, no, it blew up again. So they might push him further, or they might not. But believe me, they don't want long term peace. They want revenge on Trump, okay? Badly. They want revenge on Israel badly. These are very vengeful people. All right. So let me see what else I could add to this. Let me look at the live stream briefly. No, that's not it. If there's questions, I'll try to answer them. If anybody wants prayer or they post a prayer request, we'll try to deal with that too. Um, this thing was a little bit of a surprise. And we've seen things like this happen before, haven't we? Where it never just it looks like it's going to go and it never goes, right? So let's be careful with this. All right. I'll give you some more details about what they're doing. Uh, this isn't that relevant, but it's relevant. The U.S. Refueling airplanes, the tankers that refuel the jets that were at Ben Gurion, which is a heavily defended airport. That's our big airport, Ben Gurion. They're going to be relocating these refueling tankers around Israel, uh, to different air bases in Israel. Some of these air bases were targets of Iran, and I guess it wasn't considered prudent to leave the refueling tankers there. So they're um, moving them back to those bases there. There's so many refueling tanker planes. It's hurting our traffic flow at Ben Gurion Airport. Uh, so Iran's still going to keep their missiles. They're going to have their uranium. They're going to have their proxies. They're going to create havoc and cruelty to their own people. Remember, Trump said he was going to help them. He turned his back on the people of Iran. Remember that. He'll turn his back on other people too. So, did Israel gain anything out of this? No. Did Trump gain anything out of it? I can't possibly see what he gained. I mean, did he surrender? No, not really. But these peace talks are not going to go anywhere. He thinks he's a master negotiator because he published a book, The Art of the Deal, many years ago. And the art of the deal that he wrote was commercial industry, businesses, not this dealing with lunatics like Iran. The Iranian media mocked Iran very recently, last day or so, or hours ago. We have proved that the only option for America was to accept defeat. See what they said? So they're making a complete mockery out of Trump, and they're not going to go through with it. The Iranians initially said, we're going to attack Israel in return for the attack on Beirut, which they threatened us not to do, which Netanyahu did, hitting Hezbollah stronghold in Beirut, where a lot of Hezbollah is congregating. Um, Trump asked Iran not to attack Israel, and then we believe Trump added into the deal that Israel would not attack Lebanon anymore during this 60-day peace thing. The Fars news agency, which is the Iranian official news thing, said that they decided not to attack Israel after Trump proposed an Israel withdrawal from southern Lebanon and the immediate removal of the naval blockade, which would be Trump's naval blockade in the Persian Gulf, not Israel's. Okay. Israel is running no naval blockade anyway. All right. So um, it gets worse. Netanyahu said a few things right away in retort to what happened with Trump. Netanyahu was not privy or a party, an active party in these negotiations. Netanyahu said withdrawal from Lebanon before Hezbollah is disarmed is not going to happen. Netanyahu informed Trump that Israel will not pull IDF forces from Lebanon and does not consider itself bound by the Lebanon clause in the United States Iran Memorandum of Understanding. Now, Trump is going to bust a gut over this because he's going to see his Nobel Peace Prize going up in smoke. Because Iran's not going to sign on Friday because they're saying Israel did not remove their troops from Lebanon. And then Trump will say, well, let's give it 30 days. And then Iran will say, okay, you want us to do a ceasefire for 30 days to see if Netanyahu is going to move his troops out of Lebanon. I don't know what would happen then. They probably want to hear Netanyahu say he would do it. You got to get this down. Now, this is what you're not going to get from the news around the world because they don't understand these things. Okay. Netanyahu has 3 criminal cases for corruption. They total 16 years in jail. One is 3 years, one is 3 years, one is 10 years. I don't think they'll ever give Netanyahu 16 years in jail. They'd probably give him 2 or 3. And they would be happy to get rid of him because he'd never be able to come back and be in public office. And he wouldn't be able to maintain or regain his status as the head of the Likud political party. I think that would block him. Okay. Um, I don't know if Netanyahu's lawyers approach the attorney general and say, Netanyahu's sick, he's ill, he's old. He doesn't want to go through this with you with the trial. He'll sign an agreement that you can make into a court order that says he'll stay out of politics forever. Just leave him alone. He's old and he's sick. And they might do it just to get rid of him because he's a curse on Israel and people know it. A lot of people know it. Okay. He can't be without a war right now. He can't because the Supreme Court keeps telling him, show up for, your court trial. You got to take the stand, show up. And he keeps saying, no, I can't. I got to deal with the war. Sometimes he'll actually appear in the court, and as soon as he appears, his assistant comes in and they tell the judge there was an emergency, he has to leave. And, you know, that's how he's keeping himself out of jail. If it was likely that he would not lose his criminal case, he wouldn't be running around like this. So he's not letting go of that war. And Netanyahu knows this, what I'm just telling you, Trump is well aware of. Trump doesn't care about Netanyahu. He cares about Trump. He tried to help Netanyahu. He put a lot of pressure on the Israeli government. He put pressure on the president, Herzog, which is way underneath Netanyahu. He's a separately elected figure, and his position as president is like Marco Rubio's position, Secretary of State. The difference is Trump could fire Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio's not an elected official. Okay, Trump could fire him. Now, Netanyahu could not fire Herzog because he is an elected official. He does have the power to issue a pardon, and he could pardon Netanyahu, but he has not yet done so. I don't think he wants to. I think it's afraid it'll ruin his political career. He probably wants to eventually run for prime minister, or at least renew his president status. I think it's a 5-year election. He's in for 5 years, I believe. So there is a scheduled election, the normal election for prime minister, scheduled for, I believe it's October 27 this year. So Netanyahu is running out of rope. Why do I say that? If he doesn't win the election, he's no longer prime minister, then the Supreme Court says, come to court and testify. And if he doesn't go, they'll send the police to pick him up and carry him into the court. Okay? Okay, see you later. So Netanyahu needs a war. So he's going to keep the fighting in Lebanon dragged out. And hopefully he wins the election in his mind. For the sake of the people of Israel, I hope he gets out of office as soon as possible. He is simply horrible. He is no good for this country. He's against us. So he drags the wars out so he can keep himself out of jail. Hamas is still there. 25,000 still hold up down there. He never got rid of them, you know. There's a scripture in Jeremiah 50:51 where it says the daughter of Babylon will do evil in your sight, or mentioning Israel. That means in Israel. Okay. That means America turns against Israel. Are we there yet? I don't know. We might be. Trump can lose his patience, but if Trump loses his patience with Israel, he's got a problem because Israel has powerful lobbying over there. And the Israeli lobby will try to work for Trump's impeachment, not just to not reelect him, they'll try to get him impeached. And the left wing wants to impeach Trump. There's a lot of people that want to impeach Trump in America. And they might try it based on what? I don't know. There's a lot of things they could do. War Powers Act. I don't know. Is there a chance Iran will just wash their hands of Trump and resume the war, thinking the best thing to do is let's just continue the war, and next time we won't get 12 billion out of Trump, we'll get 100 billion? Yeah, Do they have any intentions of discontinuing their nuclear activities, limiting the amount of ballistic missiles they make, being nice and fair to the people in their own country that don't like the Muslim mullahs running the place? No, they'll never have any intention of being that way. Will they ever stop supporting their proxies? No. No, 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 no. So is this just an exercise in Trump's futility? Yeah, yeah. Trump is trying too hard to just patch this thing together and make a deal. And Trump thinks that, he could go into Iran and try to make a deal with oil and natural gas with them, or he can make a deal with this or that economic with them. And Trump, he doesn't understand. He does. What Iran wants to do is start a caliphate where all the Muslim states in the Middle East merge under Iran, and they put a caliph, which would be Khomeini, in charge. So he's a half political leader and a half religious leader. And that's what Khomeini is. And Khomeini's son, who supposedly is laying in a coma or something like that, he's supposed to be uh, that also. So that's what they want. And they got, Lebanon, the Hezbollah could easily overthrow the Lebanese government without much help. They wanted Gaza, but that fell apart. They got beaten down. Yemen could take over Yemen. The Houthis in Yemen could take over. They had Syria as a puppet, but that's over with. The new guy in Syria has no interest or love for Iran at all. Iraq, there was a new election in Iraq, and the guy in Iraq is not very interested in being a puppet for Iran anymore. So they're really diminished. They attacked Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, and Oman, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan. And none of these countries trust Iran anymore. So their plans of making a caliphate have been reduced to by force. In other words, conquering. They go in and they conquer and they kill the kings and the emirs and the sultans, and they get rid of them and they just incorporate the country into their own. And that is something I doubt we're going to see. But that would be what their goal is. And Trump doesn't quite get it. Did Trump cripple their lousy, stupid Navy? Pretty much. The only thing Trump didn't cripple is their go fast boats, which are not that serious. The only thing the go fast boats can do is work in the Persian Gulf. They or maybe slightly outside. They don't have any range, you know. Maybe they could put one or two 50-gallon barrels of oil in there and they could pump it into their fuel tank and extend the range. But these are civilian boats. They're like 50 to 80, 90 feet. I think most of them are around 60, 70 feet, maybe less. They're fast. They probably go 45 miles, maybe 60. Some of them might go 60, 70 miles an hour. They're pretty fast. They put missile launchers on them. They could shoot torpedoes off the deck. They have they install high caliber guns in there, like 50 caliber or equivalents or 20 millimeters, which can damage shipping. Um, they can have multiple, they can have missile launches and guns on there and stuff like that. And they have a small crew. I don't know what they put, 3 people on there, maybe. I don't think they set these things up like we set our PT boats up, which I think were around 60, 70 feet in World War II. But they actually had living quarters in there. They had a cooking facility. It was about this big, It was probably a 2 or 3 burner stove. and I think it had a little oven underneath it, not a microwave. And I imagine it had a coffee maker. Without a doubt, they had coffee. They probably had tea too, but definitely they had coffee. So if the guys had to stay up at night on watch or action, they could sit there and drink a cup of coffee every couple hours, right? Um, they had a few beds so some of the guys could sleep while the other guys were working. Um, it had some sort of toilet. The shower was probably, they threw a rope overboard and, you would jump in the water for a few seconds, a minute or so, and then pull yourself up with the rope and come back in. That was probably your shower, or they had a pump. Maybe this was more likely. I imagine this would have been it. They had a pump that would go in the water and they would just hold the shower up and hose themselves, or a hose or something, and just wash themselves off with whatever water they were in. I imagine that's what they had. I don't think they had water tanks at all for showers. They had water tanks for the guys. They probably had, a thing like this, or maybe two of them that would, give them enough water for 4 or 5 days. I don't think they stayed out more than 2 or 3 days, you know. And they probably had a pretty decent first aid kit, and they probably had one or two life rafts that would be small bundles in case the boat was disabled. They could go into life rafts. And then they had radios, and they had lights, searchlights. It had a heavy gun, usually not a 20 millimeter. Maybe at the end of the war it did, but usually a 50 cal. They might have put a light artillery piece in some of them just to see what would happen, like a 3-inch gun or something like that, maybe. But it did shoot torpedoes off the bow of the boat, and the torpedoes, they would point the boat at the target ship, and then they had a way. I don't know if it was compressed CO2 or something, would throw the torpedo into the water, and they had to point the torpedo where it wanted to hit. And they were probably going to be about a mile away from, or less, from the ship they were attacking with the torpedo. Uh, and it was very hard for a destroyer or a cruiser or a heavy cruiser to attack a PT boat running in the water, because these boats were pretty fast. I imagine they went 45, 50 miles an hour at least. And they could zig and zag and turn and pivot. And if they saw a torpedo coming at them, they just veer away. It would be rather stupid to send torpedoes at this boat. You're not going to hit it. It was too small of a target, and it was easily maneuver out of the way. So you'd have to get it with what? I don't know. If you had heavy guns on a destroyer and they were within gun range, which practically would be a mile, I guess, although that was probably pushing it, but say a mile, they would take the gun and try to hit you with the machine gun, which could be a 50 cal type or maybe heavier, and then, and it would be really hard to hit a moving boat. Remember, the boat's going up in the water, it's turning, it's zigging and zagging, very hard to hit it. It probably happened. It would be okay. We're gonna shut up now. Hey, I mean it. So that was the model for the Iranian go fast boats, basically. And they have between 1,500 and 3,000. We don't know how many, and they're hidden in caves in the water, and they're hard to get to. You got to destroy them when they're out in the water. And America destroyed a bunch of them. I don't know, maybe I'd say best case America hit 200 of them, maybe 300, but there's many, many more. But it can't do much. Okay, it's not that capable. It can go hijack a oil vessel from another country because three or four of them go there. They start shooting their guns at the conning tower, where the captain and the navigator operate the boat. Those things are not armored. They don't have bulletproof glass and stuff like that. They just spray some bullets up there and they say, "Stop, we're coming aboard or we'll sink you." And they have other kinds of weapons, missiles they can fire at them. So then they board the boat, they take the boat over. So yeah, that's what it's good for. But can it destroy a destroyer? Yeah, but it never did. But how would it work? Well, you'd probably have to send at least, 12 as a minimum, probably 20 or 30 out there. And then aircraft would be deployed. They'd probably send 12 planes up there, and the planes would blink at them and kill them and shoot them with guns before they got near the boat. So it's really not a serious threat. So yes, he got rid of their big boats. Yeah. Did Trump get rid of their Air Force? He did, but it wasn't a modern Air Force, but he did get rid of them. Okay. They have a few jets left, but they could be more modern Chinese jets that wouldn't be stealth, but more modern or old junky jets that go back to the 80s, or actually maybe even the 70s before they took Iran over, and that type of thing. So they didn't have an Air Force, they didn't have much of a Navy. And Trump never really polished off their IRGC. Like he didn't kill 90,000 of them or anything like that. Okay. Um, so they're just going to load up again. Okay. They're going to load up again. And in negotiations, their idea is they want $300 billion in war reparations. And if that ain't going to be coming, they're not going to sign a permanent deal. Trump doesn't understand they're not going to change their position. If anything, they're going to get harder to deal with because they saw weakness from Trump and they're going to want more out of Trump, which is going to not be let us have all the missiles we want. Trump will say, "What do I care? They're not going to hit America." They're going to say, "Don't tell us anything about what we do to our own people." Trump's going to say, "What do I care if they kill their own people?" Right? Um, this is how it's going to go. And they're going to be more tough to deal with tactically, wartime speaking. They're going to be better suited to fight America than they are now. China and Russia are going to rush to their aid in this 60-day period as much as they can, and North Korea. Okay. Will China give them another 5 or 6 radars, knowing that if it cranks up again, America will destroy them? Probably China will do it. Probably. I can't give you a written guarantee. I could just tell you probably that'll happen. I got to check something here. Okay. So Trump bought 60 days, and he's hoping in his 60 days he's going to get somewhere. He's not. Netanyahu knows it. If Netanyahu lets Hezbollah alone for 60 days, they're going to rebuild. They're going to get airplanes coming from Iran with missiles. They're going to get built up further. Okay? They're going to refortify. They're going to make it harder for us. They're going to try to kill more Israelis. If he moves out of southern Lebanon, the Hezbollah will try to storm into Israel with a suicide bonsai attack. Okay? and have these people come in and kill the people in Israel living near the Lebanese border, like they did in October 7th, and what they're going to try to do. Why do they want to do this? They want hostages. They're not going to go down to Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. They'll go maybe 2 miles in, a mile, 2, 3 miles. They'll be very close to the border where they'll hit Metula, Kiryat Shmona, the different little cities over there. And they'll go around raping the people, shooting them for as long as they can, and try to get Israelis and take them back into Lebanon right away, go into tunnels or get them on trucks and get them hidden in Lebanon. So then they can tell Israel, if you keep attacking us, we're going to kill your hostages on television. We'll cut their heads off with a butter knife or a dull knife on the TV. We'll hold their hair and, and, you're going to look like an idiot and blah, 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 blah. And that's what will happen. Would it really happen? No, because if we left Lebanon, we would be inside northern Israel. And if they tried to come over, the tanks and the mobile artillery, which looks like a tank with artillery, would shoot artillery at them. And a lot of the tanks have 2 machine guns, and they would just be mowing them down. And aircraft, helicopters, and planes would be mowing them down. Plus, the ground troops would be embedded in the ground in foxholes or behind barriers, and they would be mowing them down. No, it wouldn't really happen, but it would be ugly, and it keeps our soldiers deployed up there. You'd have to keep probably at least 10,000 up there, 5,000 maybe. It's a problem. And then they would just move back into South Lebanon, and they would put missiles in their houses and that type of thing. So it's a real mess, and Trump doesn't care about this. Trump's in Gaga land. Oh, we'll have a deal. They don't have to worry about Hezbollah. We'll have a deal. He ain't going to have a deal. Okay? He gave Iran $12 billion to sign a memorandum of understanding where they have a 60-day break in the war, and he pulls the blockade out. And he's telling them he's saving Hezbollah from Israel. So they say, what the heck? Let's do it. What do we care? We'll rebuild. We'll keep making weapons, refortifying, more new missile cities, more missile launchers, more missiles. What do we care? We'll get more radar from China. Yeah, it's a good deal. Let's do it. It doesn't mean it's going to be permanent. They're just going to keep rebuilding and letting Hezbollah rebuild. They want America to move their bases out of Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, and Oman. I don't think they'd probably Saudi Arabia and Jordan as well. But Saudi Arabia and Jordan, iffy, maybe not so much. But the other countries, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, there are no bases in Oman. And UAE, they want out. Probably Jordan and Saudi Arabia too. And I don't believe Trump's going to do that. So the chances of this ceasefire ever becoming permanent is, I would say, not even 1%. Okay. And that's what you got when you're dealing with Trump and his quest for the Nobel Peace Prize. Okay. He wants to be known as a peacemaker. Well, he picked the wrong deal, you know. Will oil prices tumble back down? Not so much. They'll probably go down to about 80, 81, 83. maybe it would get to 78, 79, but I think it would be in the 80 to 83 range, low 80s. I don't think it's going to go to 60. No. I could be wrong, but I don't see it. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not so sure. Will it affect gold and the silver? Nah, I don't think so. Not until it flares up. So that's what people in the Middle East would tell you that live here. That's all that happened. Trump accomplished nothing. And he's opening it up to them with no sanctions. So the Iranians not only get to $12 billion, they're going to get other billions of dollars in money coming in very quickly, and they need that money. They're Trump was busting them out economically. They need it. Okay, so it was not a good idea, and I don't think Netanyahu's going to go for it. I don't know how Trump's going to talk him into it because the people of Israel may very likely get rid of Netanyahu with an emergency vote of no confidence, not the kind we wait 3 months for, the kind where a day or two later we get rid of him and get somebody else in. That may be exactly what happens. And I don't think he's going to take that chance. Okay, so that let me check the live stream and then we'll get into Bible and the ancient manuscripts and all of that. And I want to see if I have any questions that need to be answered. I'm not seeing. Uh, Thank you for prayers. Thank you for the warm greetings. I figured out that in about 11 years or 10, 11 years, I think 11 or 12 years, the food prices in Israel tripled. And they're not really improving. The government's doing nothing about it. Netanyahu is very bad. He doesn't care what the rich do that I've ever seen. Okay, so let's talk about artificial intelligence first, because as you know, I'm using artificial intelligence to translate the ancient Greek and the Hebrew into English, but I'm directing the artificial intelligence not to use the church tools for translations like Brown Driver and Briggs, Strong's, even Gesenius. I'm having it use secular sources for the Old Greek and the Hebrew to understand what the meaning of the words is. And then I'm having it use that and put it into modern day English, not English from 1870 or 1611 or something like that. Okay. That's what I'm having it do. And it's working. And some people think that AI is evil, and it is evil. I mean, it is, and so's the internet evil. But we use the internet, don't we? But if you go back 25, 30 years ago, people didn't trust the internet. I remember. I got on the internet in 94. I actually got on the internet in the 80s using it for stock market quotes. But around 94, I was using email and I put a black and white, I think in 95, I put up a black and white website about Bible, you know, uh, about Israel, about spiritual warfare, about real prophecy, stuff like that. Um, Back then, I was still using King James. Uh, Now, I knew in the 90s that there was Hebrew New Testaments, but I was living in Israel in the early 90s, and um, there was Salkinson. I had copies of Salkinson, some Bible uh, place in the UK was a pro-Israel mission, and I wrote them a letter from Israel, asked them for one of these Bibles, and they sent me cases of Bibles in Hebrew, including the New Testament. I mean, I had to go to the post office and carry, I think I had 2 trips or 1 trip, I don't remember, loading cases into the car. I had cases of these things. So it was the Salkinson one. And in Israel at that time, there's a Bible society in Israel that's straight up churchianity, okay? No point with them. And they wrote a New Testament that somebody in the 10th grade could understand all the words. Something like the Living Bible in America. You know, it was not an accurate Bible, not a scholarly work, just like, hey, this is sort of kind of what the Bible says, that sort of thing, right? I have one here in the house somewhere. It's in leather. It's, I don't know, 35 years old or something, but it's in the bookcases. I don't know where. I haven't touched it in years. It's not any good. So there was 2 Hebrew Bibles. One was done by Salkinson and Delitzsch. No, Salkinson and Ginsburg. Salkinson died early on when he was doing it in the 1880s, and then Ginsburg, who was straight up churchianity, took it over, and the work isn't so bad and it's not so good. Okay. Now, that work in the 1880s was not a threat to the church world. Why? Because they knew the Jews weren't going to read it because it was a New Testament and they knew Hebrew. And they knew that there was nobody in the church to speak of except the seminarians and the researchers working in the church world and in the big universities were the only ones that could understand the Hebrew that would ever read it. And it was no threat to the church. So it existed. And it was Sweet, Swete, came out with his nice Septuagint in Greek at that time. And this was set up to be a complement to that. So, the other one, Delitzsch, was not that great churchianity figure. So there were churchianity influence in this. Sweet wasn't that bad. He did do some smoothing, but he wasn't so bad. The Codex, which means book, Vaticanus at 300 AD, is basically fragments of the Greek Septuagint going back to 250 before Yeshua, 250 BC, put together into a Bible, okay, an Old Testament. And where pieces were missing, they used other material. I think they used Masoretic text or something. I'm not sure. But they had a very, very good run with the fragments, the papyri, the pieces of leather that had the portions of the Old Testament from the Dead Sea Scrolls. But it wasn't the Dead Sea Scrolls back then in 300 AD. It was more like surviving manuscripts. They didn't have the Dead Sea Scrolls yet for a long time. So it's just they had old manuscripts, old pieces they put together. They had some missing stuff they compensated for with another material. And that was done before the church, the Catholic Church existed. There were other churches. But it's relatively clean work. And then there's about 100 years later, in the 400 AD range, they came out with Codex Sinaiticus, which also had a Greek New Testament in there and the Greek Old Testament in there. And I use those a lot. And they're put together from the fragments, and they're rather good. Um, and I use I one time going back to the early 80s, I was studying Greek. I bought some sort of correspondence course from one church place. I was a brand new believer, and I was trying to learn the Greek on the weekends and stuff and at night. And I never got that far. I got far enough to understand a little bit about the tenses, and I knew the alphabet, which I don't anymore. So I knew the alphabet so I could look meanings up in various translation dictionaries and things like that. So um I never got it too far, you know. But these works that I'm talking about now were foreign. They had them in museums. What happened in going back to maybe the last 15 years, 10, 12, 15 years or something like that, these works got digitized. People scanned them and digitized them, and you could find them for free in some places, or if you want to buy them in an app form, you go to Logos and they could be 10 to 40, 50, or $80, depending which ones they are. And I bought several of those in app form because it's easier to work with. And these things were unavailable years ago when I was uh, working on trying to find a real Bible back around the mid 90s, I would say. There wasn't much to work with, really. There wasn't much to work with. So I was looking for better English translations and stuff like that. And there's not really that many good ones. So I was digging hard into the King James and using various sources to look up the meaning of the words, to look up the actual Hebrew word or the Greek word or something like that and try to figure out what it really meant. And that is usually basically working with Strong's. And it's basically a very tedious job. And if you're going to do uh, a verse with 50 or 60 words in it, it could take you hours. Okay. And I was younger then, so I didn't have any trouble with them, but it still takes hours. So it wasn't, computers weren't what they are today. You couldn't digitize it and stuff like that. So works that were not ever intended to be revealed to the public by the church world and the universities, which are satanic, and the cow got out of the barn and they are available to the church world. The problem is the church world doesn't know they exist and they don't trust them. And the translation of these works, even if you got a digitized sweet Septuagint, it would be for you to just translate, Malachi 3 would take hours and hours and hours to get a Czech translation against King James or something. It would take you many, 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 many hours for one chapter. If you're going to try to do a big one like Jeremiah 50, it could take you 3 or 4 days, 5 days. It would take a tremendous amount of time. Okay. So the church was safe. What changed things? You see, the guys in the seminaries that took 3 or 4 years of Greek, they took maybe 6 courses or 8 in biblical Greek. They weren't wasting their time learning how to talk Greek, although they probably did know some of that. They weren't trying to write Greek. They were just trying to read Greek and know what it meant. They could pick up Malachi 3 and read it in a 2, 3, 4 minutes, and they would understand quite well what it meant. And if they didn't understand certain key words, they could open up a dictionary, and it would take them as much time as it would for you to open up a Webster dictionary and look up a word like dissension or something like that. Seconds. So it was still open to the seminarians, and the church world knows what the Bible really says. I want to impress that upon you, the Catholic and the other churches, the denominations, the Pentecostals, the nominal, this church, the Lutheran, Baptist, all of them. They know what it really means. Their seminary people actually know. And they share it with them. I don't know if they teach that to the students in the seminary. I doubt it. They're more concerned with how to build a sermon, how to run a service, how to set up a church, how to do the daycare, how to do the youth ministry, how to do the music ministry, how to do home Bible studies, how to do the music, how to do this, how to do that. They're teaching them to play church. They're not teaching them how to be scholars in the Greek and Hebrew ancient written works. They're not into that, okay? But the actual people in the seminaries, in the universities, Cambridge and places like that, Oxford, they know what it really says, but they're not going to make a real translation because it's going to get them in trouble because they're going to be kicking against the church world. They're not going to do it. University will get rid of them. Nobody's out to do that. They're not out to reveal the truth. I am. And many researchers are also. So along comes AI, which is how old? I mean, last year, did you have AI? Probably not. Some people did. So it's the last year, maybe, or less, that people were getting AI. And then I found out AI could translate this stuff using the old works to get the meaning of the word from a secular source. Now, we get into censorship with AI. AI is not censored to get you to not let them use certain translation materials, as far as I know. Okay. If I'm wrong, and they actually are steering people towards the church party line, I don't know it. As a matter of fact, AI is telling me where the church went off course and giving me the whole history and the background and the basis and showing me what the real meaning of the words is. So it's actually working in the opposite. So I don't think the AI people, which are liberal people, they're not church people, they're not interested in organizations that condemn certain types of behavior, which Netanyahu has certain types of marches through Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, endorsing and promoting, if you get my drift. Okay. They're not pro church, they're the opposite. Okay. So they're not protecting the church. Okay. These AI programs are not tied to the church, they don't have anything to do with the church. They don't care if the church falls apart. They don't like the church. They don't go to church. They're not interested in the church. Okay. It's not illegal to understand what the Greek manuscripts say and what the Hebrew old manuscripts say. That's not against any law. The only people it offends is the church world, the not the true believers, the church world, the ones with the denominations, which is a prohibitive activity in Galatians 5:19-21. The King James calls it seditions. It's a division. Like, are you with Apollos or you with Cephas, right? Are you a Baptist or are you a Lutheran? Are you with Apollos or are you with the Cephas? It's prohibited behavior, and it says you will not enter the kingdom of God if you do that. Yet people don't care, and they still attend every Sunday from 9 to 11 in the morning. In the denomination also says in Galatians 5:19-21, variance. Variance is you vary in your beliefs. You're making cults. You're making sections. You're making denominations. We're pre-trib. No, we're mid-trib. We're post-trib. We do house churches. We don't do the buildings. Oh, we baptize in the Holy Spirit. We don't. We pray in tongues. We don't. We spritz baptize with water. Oh, we immerse baptize with water. We're a millennial. We think Yeshua could come back any day. Or we're post trib. You see, that's factions, that's seditions, that's denominations, divisions. A house divided unto itself shall not stand, right? Yeshua said that. You think he was kidding? That's why if you do variance and you do divisions, seditions, you don't enter the kingdom of God. Yet, every Sunday morning they go there and they give money to him. They're partakers of him. They sit there with him. And what does it say in 2 Corinthians 11:4? They have another Jesus, they have another gospel, and they have another spirit. It says it right there in 2 Corinthians 11:4. You can read it. It's in your own Bible. Why don't you listen to it? Why don't you listen to Galatians 5:19-21? What do you think? You got to get out of jail free card from the Lord? You're immune from it? And what are their party lines? Well, we're not perfect, so why should the church be perfect? Oh, you never read because Yeshua's coming back for a church without spot, wrinkle, or blemish? So you think it's okay to have spot, wrinkle, and blemish? So I don't think there's a major problem with censorship with AI. However, I am either today or tomorrow going to work on censorship free AI, which I'm going to read you the names of if you want to do it. Now, these have been examined by computer geeks, people that are really deep into computers, and it's probably open. I don't know if it's open source, but they test it, and they know all you got to do is test it. Like they could ask it things about the government, and it'll criticize governments, which the AI doesn't normally do. The AI you buy believes Fox News, New York Post, Times, Wall Street Journal are the truth. We know better, but they think it's the truth. See, it's not. Most of the time, not all. These sources like the Wall Street Journal, New York Times won't tell you things that aren't really true, but they do at times do this. Okay. And when you use this, small media AI and you ask AI if it's true, it comes back and says, there's no reputable news source that says this. See, that's the problem you get with them. That's one problem. I imagine if you said to it something like, how could I make a silencer so I could shoot somebody in a crowd and it won't sound like a gunshot, they wouldn't do it. Okay? Yeah, things like this. How can I conceal a knife on my person so I could pass through metal detectors? I don't think it would tell you. Okay? So these are the kind of things that the left wing people behind AI are concerned about. Okay, like Google. Google's not right wing. Okay, these are the concerns that these AI people have, all right? Uh, not Bible translations, okay? So I'm going to tell you about Bible Uncensored. I have to find where I wrote it down. If you go to uncensored.com, uncensored.com, it's a website. They have a free version and they have a paid version. It's cumbersome to use it. You got to go to the website. The free version probably lets you use it once or twice every day, very little. I don't know. I signed up for it. I don't even know what the sign in for it is, but you can go there and use that. Okay. Now there's others. They have three other ones. One is called Venice.ai. I used that one once or twice. It was all right, I guess. There's another one called Freedom GPT, and there's another one called No Filter GPT. I will read it again. There is a website. I don't like using websites. I like using an app. But the website is called uncensored.com. They let you use it for free. How much? I don't know. And then they have a paid version. I don't know what it costs. There's another one called Venice.ai, another one called Freedom GPT, and there's a third one called No Filter GPT. Okay. So I will be looking into getting some of these AIs, if they're as powerful as the ones I'm using, I will begin using those to test if I'm getting any censorship from the AI I've been using that maybe they're fooling me. Do I think that's the case? No, no. But I'll double check it. I'm going to take a break and then we're going to go to Daniel. Okay. We're going to start with Daniel. We'll do Daniel 7, verse 1. In the first year of Belshazzar, whatever his name is, king of Babylon, Daniel saw a dream. This is the first year this Balthasar got into office. It's not the first year Daniel was there. Daniel saw a dream, and the vision of his head was upon his bed, and writing the dream, he comprehended it in a few words, and relating the sum of it in short, he said, let me get these things on so I don't get all the glare. He said, now we're in verse 2. I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heavens strove upon the great sea. Verse 3. And four great beasts, different one from another, came out of the sea. The first was like a lioness and had the wings of an eagle. I beheld till her wings were plucked off, and she was lifted up from the earth and stood upon her feet as a man, and the heart of a man was given to her. Very odd. And behold, another beast like a bear. Remember the lion, when the beast comes up in Matthew 13, he's described as having attributes like a lion and also like a bear. Okay. Another beast like a bear stood up on one side, and there were three rows in the mouth thereof and in the teeth thereof. And thus they said to it, arise, devour much flesh. Verse 6. After this I beheld, and another like a leopard, again like the beast that came up. But these are four beasts. The beast was one beast in Revelation 13. Okay. The beast. Okay. Like a leopard, and it had upon it four wings as of a fowl, and the beast had four heads, and power was given to it. Verse 7. After this I beheld the vision of the night, and lo, a fourth beast, terrible and wonderful and exceeding strong. It had great iron teeth, eating and breaking in pieces and treading down the rest with his feet. And it was unlike to the other beasts which had seen before, and had 10 horns. Daniel 7:6. You see, I believe these beasts are not a literal thing. They're describing the attributes of this thing. Okay. I considered the horns, and behold, another little horn uh, spring out of the midst of them, and three. Hold on, the iPad spun a little. And headed down the rest, and treaded down the rest who, and it was, no, I think we're in, okay, let me start this verse, which is 7. After this I beheld, in the vision of the night, and lo, a fourth beast, terrible and wonderful and exceeding strong, and had great iron teeth, eating and breaking in pieces. It means it could devour the iron teeth, and treading down the rest with his teeth. And it was unlike to the other beasts which had seen before it, and had 10 horns. Verse 8, I considered the horns, and before another little horn sprung out of the midst of them, and three of the first horns were plucked up at the presence thereof, and behold, eyes like the wait a minute, I got iPad nightmare again. Okay, let me get it. And three of the first horns were plucked up at the presence thereof, and behold, eyes like the eyes of a man were in the horn, and a mouth speaking great things. So eyes like, so it's like a man, and it's it's showing you the attributes of these entities. It's not, you're not going to see these monsters literally. Okay, I beheld till thrones were placed, and the Ancient of Days sat, and his garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like clear wool, his throne like flames of fire, the wheels of it like a burning fire. Okay. That's Father God Jehovah. Okay. The Ancient of Days. Now I'm in verse 10. The good translation is going to come in a bit. This is just building up. Okay. A swift stream of the issued forth, a swift stream of fire issued forth from before him. Thousands of thousands ministered to him, and 10,000 times 100,000 stood before him. That's a lot of people. The judgment sat, and the books were opened. Well, that would be after the millennium is over and everything's finished. Okay. 7:11. That's the next verse, 11, Daniel 7. I beheld because of the voice of the great words which that horn spoke, and I saw that the beast was slain, and the body thereof was destroyed, and given to the fire to be burnt. I believe this is the beast thrown into the lake of fire, I assume, but that happens before the end of the millennium. Maybe when the millennium's over, God actually just eliminates this beast from being in the lake of fire. It's just gone. I don't know. I don't know. And that the power of the other beasts was taken away, and that times of life were appointed them a time and a time. Now, this is interesting because it tells us, and the power of the other beasts was taken away, and that times of life were appointed them. The other beasts, not the demons so much, the other beasts. You see, a time at times and half a time, as I've told you, is not 42 months. And okay, it's captivity of Israel. The first time was Egypt. Second time was Babylon. That was a captivity. The third time was Egypt, Rome, when they 70 AD, and they took 200,000 Jews back to Roman captivity. And the half a time is in Zechariah 14 and is yet to come. And that's your Gog and Magog, Ezekiel 38, 39, when half of Jerusalem goes into captivity. And that never happened yet. So when did these other beasts go bye-bye? They were given a time to live for a time and a time. First time Egypt, then Babylon. So after the Babylonian captivity, they were gone. You never heard that one before, huh? Okay. Verse 13. I beheld, therefore, in the vision of the night, and lo, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and he came even to the Ancient of Days, and they presented him before him. This is Yeshua going up on the cloud where they said, you saw him go up like this. This is how he'll come back. This is the event. He's going back to be with his Father in heaven. That's exactly what you're seeing here. Verse 14. And he gave him power and glory and a kingdom, and all the peoples, tribes, and tongues shall serve him. His power is an everlasting power that shall not be taken away, and his kingdom that shall not be destroyed. Amen. But remember that Jehovah said to him, sit thou at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool. Okay. My spirit trembled. I, Daniel, was affrighted at these things, and the visions of my head troubled me. I went near to one of them that stood by and asked the truth of him concerning all these things, and he told me the interpretation of the words and instructed me. These four great beasts, the fourth kingdom, which shall arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High, God, shall take the kingdom, and they shall possess the kingdom forever and ever. That's coming up. And after this, I would diligently learn concerning the fourth beast, which was very different all and exceeding terrible. His teeth and claws were of iron he devoured and broke in pieces, and the rest. Hang on, my iPad was spinning again. It's a piece of junk. I believe I was up to devoured and the fourth beast, which was very different from all and exceeding terrible. His teeth and claws were of iron. He devoured and broke in pieces, and the rest he stamped upon with his feet. And concerning the 10 horns that he had on his head, and concerning the other that came up before, while 3 horns fell, and of that horn that had eyes and the mouth, speaking great things, and was greater than the rest. I beheld and stinking iPad, where did it go? Concerning the other that came up before, which 3 horns tell and fell, and of that horn that had eyes and a mouth, speaking great things, and was greater than the rest. I beheld, and to that horn made war against the saints and prevailed over him. So that would be when there were the saints, and the saints would probably be after the time of Yeshua or at the time of Yeshua. So it could have very well been Rome, the horn, till the Ancient of Days came and gave judgment to the saints of the Most High. And the time came, and the saints obtained the kingdom. And thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be greater than all the kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. And the 10 horn, oh, this stupid iPad, I tell you, I got enough of this junk. Okay. The horn had eyes and a mouth, speaking great things, and was greater than the rest. I believed, and lo, that horn made war against the saints and prevailed against them, till the Ancient of Days came and gave the kingdom to the saints of the Most High. And the time came, and the saints obtained the kingdom. And thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be greater than all the kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break in pieces, and the 10 horns, and the same kingdom shall be 10 kings. I can't believe this thing's spinning again. This piece of garbage. Okay. And another shall rise after them, and he shall be mightier than the former, and he shall bring down 3 kings. Verse 25. And he shall speak words against against the high one, and shall crush the saints of the Most High, and he shall think himself able to change times and laws. And it says he will think he's able to change times and laws. He's changed the calendar, but we know the real calendar, for instance, right? He's got his own stupid laws, but we know the real laws of God. Galatians 5:19-21, case in point. Um, Crush the saints of Most High, he shall think himself able to change times and laws, and they shall be delivered into his hand until a time, times, and half a time. Okay, now that's when it's all over. When you hit the end of Ezekiel 38:39, that's the half a time. Half of Jerusalem goes into captivity. In Zechariah 14, you could read it. So what happens? Then Yeshua returns to earth with New Jerusalem. We go into New Jerusalem. We're given our rewards, and we stay there for the millennium, and then after, and then Satan's loosed again. He surrounds New Jerusalem, Jerusalem, and Father God Jehovah comes down from heaven and burns the whole thing up, the whole universe. We get on the clouds, we meet them in the air, the dead rise first, and we all go up to heaven to be with God the Father forever and ever and ever. And there's like no time on that, it never ends. It's an infinite amount of time. It has no ending. You can't measure it. It just never ends. Okay. And verse 26, and judgment shall sit, that his power may be taken away and be broken in pieces and perish, even to the end, and that the kingdom and the power and the greatness of the kingdom unto the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all kings shall serve him. Hitherto is the end of the matter, the end of the word. I, Daniel, was much troubled with my thoughts, and my countenance was uh, changed in me, but I kept the word to myself. Okay. Now I'm going to give it to you a little bit differently with a much deeper interpretation from the old text. This was a superficial interpretation of the old text. Okay. The beasts, who are they? Well, we don't know. They mean you could get the Ottoman Empire, the Roman Empire, the Alexandrians, the this, the that, Attila the Hun. Look, I believe it was probably the Babylonians. Okay, that was probably it. Okay, I'm guessing, but I think that was it. All right, moving along. God was angry with the Babylonians, and they got it. Okay. The beginning. Okay, this is Daniel 7:12. we're going to read this. It's going to look a little differently. The beginning power office was removed, and the length of life was given to them until a time and time. Now, the word is really season. They call it time, it's really season. But what is the season but a period of time? It references the captivity, okay? But it stops after the second one. It doesn't say time, times, which is two, and half a time. It just says basically time and time, or time and season. And the second captivity is Babylonian, so that's when I think it was over. Okay, next, verse 13. I kept looking in the vision of the night, and behold, with the clouds of the heaven, as like a son of man was coming, and until till the olden years, or it's actually the alternative translation that's better is old of days, he came, or you could say came before, overtake, he came and bring, or was brought to him. Okay, so Yeshua was brought to him. Okay, verse 14, and to him was given the beginning power. Ah, the beginning power. How about that? This is your real translation. Okay, and the honor was there for sure. Value, price, yeah, honor, and the kingdom, yeah, and all the peoples, tribes, tongues shall serve him. Not yet. Well, they're not openly serving him. I mean, I think he controls everything. All right, let's see what this is. Give me a second. Uh, I don't think we're expecting deliveries. I don't know what it is. Some crook. There's so many crooked people running around trying to get loans. There's no loan place in Israel is going to give you a loan unless you give them collateral. And you give them your car or your house, and they'll just try to take it away if they can. Uh, okay, now we're going to do Daniel 7:25 deeper. And word, or it could be a message, okay, towards the highest, or we would better translate perhaps loftiest, most high. He shall. Now, these English words I'm reading you are coming from this work this guy did. It's called the critical text to show you the real meaning of the words so you would understand the English in the English Bible stinks. That's what this guy set out to do. He shall speak, and the holy, or you could interpret it sacred holy ones, of the Most High shall wear down. That's your translation. Wear down is get weary. And we know all about that. It's a wear down. And shall think about the change after time, season, and law. Try to change time or season and law is what it's saying, and customs. And it will be given by hand. It it's just choppy. It is until or till time, season, a time. So it's going to be until the time in the season. It would be the literal, the two, which brings us back to Babylon. Also, even and at least half time season time. Well, that's talking. I'm sorry. This is different. This is talking about a time times and half a time. I'm sorry. The other one was there. Sorry about that. The word time could be a season. Okay. Daniel 9:24. Now, this is what it really says. 70, not 70 weeks. There are people saying it means units of seven. They don't understand. They mean if it means that. Determined, uh, cut out upon, against the city, that's Jerusalem. It says the holy city, sacred of thee to be finished, completed, brought to an end, sin. In other words, finishing sin, failure, and of the to seal up. So it's sealing up the prophecies, I believe. Lock away, uh, unrighteousness. Get rid of unrighteousness. Speaking of Israel, uh, lawless, seal, lock away, unrighteousness, lawless, and of thee to wipe out, erase, blot out the unrighteousness, and of thee to make atonement, or wipe away, propitiate wrongdoings, and of the and of thee to bring in, uh, or introduce righteousness, justice, everlasting, so everlasting justice, eternal, and of thee to seal up or confirm or close the vision and prophet, and of thee to anoint or consecrate the Holy of Holies, the holy places. See, it's saying it clearly. It's saying holiest to holies, the holy places, which is the holiest of holies. It's not Yeshua. Yeshua's name is Hamashiach, Yeshua Hamashiach. It means the anointed. What he was referred to as Yeshua the anointed. We don't anoint him. God anointed him. And when he remember he got baptized in the water and he rose up and everything, God anointed him. We don't anoint Yeshua. Okay. The temple, holiest to holies. That's the temple that the church tells you is never going to exist. Now I'm in Daniel 12:7. And I heard, hear and obey the man, husband clothed in batten, linen, I guess is batten, who be or exists, happen above the water of the rivers, and he lifted the on the right hand and side, right hand and the left or the left hand side towards. So it's Yeshua. He's on the water, okay, above the water. So it sounds like he's walking on water, okay. And he put both his hands up to heaven. And he swore by the one who lives age or lives forever. That's his father. For a time, season, times, season, so it's garbled up here. It's time times half. Okay, half a time. Uh, the complete completing of scattering abroad, dispersion. They shall learn, perceive all these things. So it says the scattering abroad. Okay, the times and half a time. It ends when when half of Jerusalem goes into captivity, they get taken out of Israel, they get scattered outside again. That's the end of it. That's when it ends. As a believer, if you're not sinning in these days from today forward, I don't believe you're going to get, tread down by the enemy and stuff like that. There are people that say they believe it. Shut up now! Shut up! I better see what's wrong. Something's wrong. Pray, pray. What's wrong? Is somebody out here? Benny? What do you see? I don't see anything. What? What is this ruckus? Come on. I'll be right back, guys. Sorry, my wife came home from the supermarket. That was the barking. And she had a bag of meat that she didn't want to leave in the car because it's hot. So I had to take it in. I'm sorry. That's life in Israel. All right. I want to show you what these works look like so you can see what it is. You can see there's English in there. And this is specifically created to discredit the English Bibles. Okay? That's what it's for. And when you see, two words in here, they're the alternate meanings of the word. The second one, to the right hand side of the semicolon, is usually the better one. See, like with the hands, it says on the right hand or side right. Okay. This is Daniel 12, I think, here. And it says raise up. Another one meaning would be lift high. Raise up is more better, I guess. Season seems to be a better word than times, but it doesn't affect the change. It's a period of time, and that's what time is. What does time mean? A period of time. What is a season? A period of time. That's all. So it doesn't change the meaning of time and times and half of times. When the Lord told me that, I said, he told me what it means. I said, no, that's not what it means. He was very nice. And he just said, no, it is, and I said, oh, yeah, I said, okay, you wrote it. I don't know, I was just kind of commenting. I said, I guess I was more or less trying to say, that's not what I believe. Um, it was kind of playful about it, really, because he knew that I wasn't trying to teach him what the Bible meant. I just was, I was shocked that that's what it meant. Uh, so let me go in the live stream here and see if we're getting any questions. So that just gives you an idea of what the real words are actually saying. Um, the temple has to be built. Well, you haven't been with me in a while. I could fix that with you. I'll just use the King James. It's easy. We go to Ezekiel 37. Now I'm doing this in King James. It's going to work in King James. It'd be better. Wait a minute. I don't. Oh, I see where I'm at. Okay. 37, verse 26. Okay. Let me get these on. All right. Oh, we'll just start in 25, Ezekiel 37:25. And they shall dwell in the land which I gave to my servant Jacob, which is, he's speaking of Israel, wherein your fathers dwell, and they shall dwell in it, they and their children's children forever. And David, my servant, shall be their prince forever. Now, that's not giving us a literal David. The anointed prince dies in Daniel 9, I think 26, maybe. The anointed prince is from the line of Daniel. There is an anointed prince in the next temple. You could read it yourself. Just read Ezekiel 45. He's right there doing the offerings, right there, no problem. David shall never lack a man to sit on the throne. So that's why he's from the line of David, the family of David, Mishpucha David. Okay. But it is elected unto man to die only once. Did David die? Yes, he died. So it can't be the literal David because this anointed prince dies. I believe it's Daniel 9:26. It could be 25, but I believe it's 26. Okay. So it's not literal David. It can't be. All right. Next, verse 26. And I will make a covenant of peace with them, Israel. It shall be, remember, it says when they go in the wilderness, this is found in Ezekiel 20, beginning of verse 33 to the end of the chapter. In the great Exodus is to stop in the wilderness where you pass under the rod. In other words, you're really the real thing. You're a true believer or you're Israelite, and you enter into the bond of the covenant. So that's the covenant. And I will make a covenant of peace, shalom, with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant, never goes away, with them, and I will establish them and will multiply them and will set my sanctuary in the midst of them. Will set. It says he will set it. That word is the same word that means place, where it says he will place them, set. He puts it there, okay? I will put my sanctuary in the midst of them. The middle of Israel is Jerusalem forever. So it never gets destroyed. When you read Daniel 8:23, after the trouble of Gog and Magog, they just reconsecrated. It never gets destroyed. And will establish them and will multiply them and will set my sanctuary in the midst of them forever. And my tabernacle shall be with them, and my tabernacle shall be with them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. The tabernacle is the tabernacle. And if you read, we don't, the only time I think I ever use the Apocrypha is now. Second Maccabees 2, chapter 2 is Second Maccabees is supposed to be historically very accurate. And Jeremiah hides the actual tabernacle because of the Babylon thing coming. He hides it in Mount Nebo, the mountain Moses died on, but looked into the promised land, but then died. He puts the uh, tabernacle in a cave there and seals it up so no one can find it. And he says in Zechariah 1, I believe, until the Lord shows mercy unto Israel. Jeremiah says that, and it happens in Zechariah 1, or perhaps 2, but it happened. Okay, so that's when we get the tabernacle back, and you can see here it is. So the tabernacle may actually, that's for traveling, it moves. The sanctuary, the temple doesn't move. So they're going to enter into the bond of the covenant in the wilderness. So the tabernacle may go into the wilderness. Okay. Could the glory of God be with them in the wilderness? It's very likely. I don't know. It says he'll come suddenly to his temple. So maybe that's when he comes back from the wilderness, or I don't know. Maybe he doesn't go in the wilderness with them. I don't know. But what's been done once will be done again. And he was in the wilderness with Moses and Aaron, so he might be in the wilderness with them. We'll have to see. And my tabernacle shall be with them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And the heathens, the nations, the Goyim, shall know that I am Jehovah, the sanctifier of Israel, when my sanctuary shall be in the midst of them forever. See, if it was a temple that the rabbis built, why would the heathen think that Jehovah's the sanctifier of Israel? They wouldn't. They, the rabbis and them, they built temples in the past. It didn't do much, But if it came down from heaven, it looked like it came down from heaven. Now that's another story. Now we're not talking about New Jerusalem. So this is going to convince the nations. So now, when you read Ezekiel 43, you get a lot of insights into this that you should read. When you read Ezekiel 40 to 48, it talks about the temple, the next temple heavily, and we're never given instructions how to build it. We're given the illustrations or ideas about the temple, how it looks, so we know the law of the temple. It uses those words, the law of the temple, the rules, and you know how to go in and go out. You go in one door and out another when you go in the temple, and that's depicted in Ezekiel 45 too. But we're never given enough detail to build it. We're not told the door. We're not told what kind of wood it's made out of. We're not told how thick it is, what color it is, how high it is, how wide it is, what kind of handle. Nothing like that, like what was given to Moses to build the tabernacle. We're not given. We're not told what the floor is made out of, what the walls are made out of. We're not told how high the ceiling is, how wide the doorway is, how many steps, what they look like, what they're made. Nothing, because we don't build it. Okay. So they couldn't build it. They'd have to just guess and make up what they think the way it's built. And that's not the way God wants it. So that's why it's never been built. It's not supposed to. So is Yeshua and is God in control? I think it's more God the Father's in control, not Yeshua. And because Yeshua is sitting at his right hand until he makes his enemies his footstool. And this is the 2,000-year punishment that's found in Hosea 6, 1 and 2. But I believe that punishment period is somewhat over because now we're in recompenses to pay back to the nations. And that's different. And the nations are suffering. I mean, Iran has been really busted up. Gaza's a shipwreck, not been fixed. Lebanon's busted up. Syria's been damaged. You know, lots of stuff. Yemen got bombed up. Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Oman, Jordan, Saudi Arabia are enemies of ours in reality. They got blown up. So this is a whole world out there of people that started making works, let's say starting in the early 2000s, I guess, when they were able to scan these ancient works that have been as in museums and stuff, they could scan it. You know, they're not going to let you go in a museum and start turning pages, because if every scholar wanted to go in there and turn pages in a couple of months at most, the thing would fall apart and they'd have nothing. Okay. But they do one time with gloves on very carefully. They turned the pages and took pictures or scanned it, put a scanner over it or something, and they got the scans. Okay. And once they got the scans, they put them online and you could read them online, download them. And then people took it and they sell it for a few bucks as a download and that kind of thing. So that's what went on. Okay. So the stuff is out there now. So you can get a much, much better idea of what the Bible really says compared to what was going on, even 12, 15 years ago. But it's still not, you see, the publishing companies, Zondervan, Hendrickson, or whatever the brothers of them aren't going to go out there and take one of these and give you an honest translation of it, because the church will bust the gut. So we've learned that there's an appearing of Yeshua in the clouds, and that's when the people get everlasting life that are believers, based on John 6, verse 40, 1 John 3, verse 2, Revelation 1, 7, and the actual occurrence of said thing in Zechariah 12, verse 10. You can play that back and look the verses up and start learning them. I've covered them so many times on this channel. So that has been concealed from the people. Yet that was the great hope of the people when the apostles were running around Israel alive. Okay. But Satan's covered that great hope up. And his false ones just preach Gog and Magog. And they've eliminated from their doctrine what's going on, which is the siege of Israel, which is from the surrounding nations, which is basically ongoing now. And the two witnesses burned these nations up. It's found in Zechariah 12:6. So, yes, the two witnesses do work before Revelation 11 and Gog and Magog. And they don't teach any of that. They don't teach you what the signs in Joel are, where the sun goes dark and the moon turns to blood. That's when Yeshua appears in the cloud and a trumpet blows. And that's the beginning of the second 70 of Daniel 9:24, 70. They've covered that up in the English and make it to read 70 weeks, and it's not weeks, it's 70. Two 70s. The first happened already, the second is on its way. And it begins with the appearing of Yeshua in the clouds and the everlasting life. And then Israel is given 70 years to get better, as it says in Daniel 9, the end of the chapter, get rid of the unrighteousness, the sin, and, anoint the most holy, all that. And they, at the end of the 70 years, what happens is the moon goes dark and the sun goes dark and the stars fall and don't give their light. And that's when Yeshua comes back. But this time, Yeshua's coming back on a white horse with the double-edged sword, which is an allegory of the word of God, and it's covered with blood. And he's leading an army of angels on him. Okay. And he's coming to make war and be victorious as a king and set up New Jerusalem. And then we go in New Jerusalem, which is guarded by an angel. Each gate, 12 gates, each gate named after one of the tribes of Israel. So what gate do you think you would go into? The Lutheran, the Baptist, the Pentecostal, the Catholic? Oh, gee, they don't have such gates. So that's why you read in Ezekiel 47, the believers are incorporated into the tribes of Israel. And they become as the native born Israelites in these tribes. And then you are incorporated into the tribe and you go in the appropriate gate. And that should explain to you why all Israel is saved. It never says all the church is saved. But what you do read is broad and wide is the road to destruction, and many find it. And you could find it pretty heavily on Sunday morning between 9 and 11, with crowds and mobs going into these churches. The Messianic congregations are just Jewish churches. They're not any different. Oh, they're a little different, but they're not any better. They're not good. And then when Yeshua comes back, the beast and the false prophet go in the lake of fire, and everything changes, and we get set up, and then we have a rest because we're weary. So we have a rest for 1,000 years. And then Satan gets released. And he probably has to take some time to gather the nations together, and then it's all over. God sees who the wicked ones are. They go to Satan, and we didn't fall away. There's no falling away out of New Jerusalem. And that's the end of that. So you got 12 gates, each gate guarded by an angel. Now, in the next temple, the temple itself doesn't have 12 gates, but it's surrounded by a wall with 12 gates, each gate named after one of the tribes of Israel. So we could have a similar situation over there too. But as a believer, you'll be in Israel, even if you're not a native born Israelite. So these are the things that they're not teaching. And you can even pull a lot of these things out of the King James. But that's, it's better when you get the better translations. So I've collected a bunch of books that have these, old documents. I don't like relying on AI to get them, although AI can get a lot of them for you. You don't even have to tell them. Just you don't even have to have the book, but I like having it, and then I cut and paste it or screenshot it and cut it into or put it into the AI app and let it work from there. But you know, so this all leads to a translation. It could lead to a app on prophecy. But again, I keep asking you guys for prayer. Not that you're not praying, you're praying, but I don't get an answer. I don't know if I should do this prophecy app or not do it, because I could do it with the King James and the good text and explain it, you know, what's really going to happen and what's not going to happen and the references. It's not that hard to do it. I just gotta. It's hard when you're my age because I get up early and I work to prep for the broadcast. I do the broadcast, then I got to rest. Some afternoons I got a lot of energy, and some I don't. I'm using Creating now for probably 3 weeks a month, maybe not a month, but a while. And that's making a difference. I'm thinking of upping the dose. I take about 6 to 7 milligrams a day. I should go up to 10, but I got to do it in 2 doses. And it may help more. I don't know. People say it does. I just drink coffee in the morning. I don't drink coffee later in the day normally. So I do 2 cups. I'm not going to start turning into one of those 4 or 5 cups a day. Too old for that. I don't want that. So I could try to do that. I'm just I could have AI stored in the cloud, and then it says it could build an app in a few minutes for me. I believe it. And it would be a lightly searchable app. So you could search by the book, the chapter, and the verse. That would be it, you know. Um, and I would write it in English, but I could easily tell it to translate to German, French, Chinese. I don't know. Uh, but I don't have any way of checking that, so I don't know how to do it. I could have it put it in Hebrew too and distribute it. I wouldn't sell it. I can't sell things. I make a merchandise out of God's people. I just give it. I could ask them if you want to support the work. Here's the PayPal. That's as far as you could go. You could just say if you want to support it here, but here it is. It's yours. It's free. Do whatever you want with it. That's the only way you can do it. You can't do it any other way. That's for the false ones, the false teachers. They don't fear God, so they make merchandise out of God's people. Let me tell you something. I was doing this with somebody, and I want to do it again. About 1%, I get a fraction of 1% of people giving offerings, but because of the nature of what I do. But the churchianity guys, the false teachers, or the teachers that mean well and teach falsehood because they don't know any better, the big ones are Satan bots. Believe me, what they do is they have YouTube, they have Instagram, they have Facebook, and they have Twitter. That's about all of them. They generally have all of that. They don't usually bother with Rumble or TikTok, okay? Some do. When you add all these guys up, what they generally got at least 1 million people. Offerings, they say, on the average, run about $20, $30 a person a month. Okay. Then you're always going to have people that give more and less, but let's just say 20, 30, let's just say $25 a month, and they get 1%. So if they have 1 million people, 10% is 100,000, 1% is 10,000. Okay. 10,000 times 100 is 1 million. So they got 10,000 people. Okay. At $25, that's $250,000 a month. I'll check the math. Most people don't understand that these characters are millionaires. So you got 10,000 times 25. It's 250,000 times 12. That's $3 million a year. So let's say I overshot, and they don't have that many people. They have 500,000 people. They're getting $1.5 million a year. Let's say I overshot, and they don't have that many. They have, I don't know, less. So they're getting $750,000 a year. Understand how rich they are? Now, what else do? They do tours. They take people on tours and sell airline and hotel packages with them. They make a lot of money at that. And then they sell books and things like that. They make a lot of money at that. And then they sell music, some of them, and they make a lot of money at that. And then they sell conferences where people go to a certain location and they do a 2-day, 3-day prophecy conference. They make money at that. So I mean, if you really want to downplay it, they're making. I mean, a bad one's making 250, 3, $400,000 a year. Okay, I mean that's a bad one. That's an immature one. I struggle. We go and get free fruit and vegetables from charity. I'm processing through the public and private welfare system. That's how bad it is for me, and that's how they live. Because people don't want to hear what I talk about. Because broad and wide is the way to destruction, and many find it. And straight and narrow is the true path, and few find it. So my job is to work with the few, and there's not many, and they don't have a lot of money. Where that would be Hezbollah. Yeah, yeah. Hezbollah has been attacking North Israel. She's telling me. Um, so there's not going to be any peace with them. And then Iran may very likely refuse to sign the deal with Trump on Friday. I think you could plan on that. Um, Maybe Yemen joined in. We don't know. Okay. So that's how they make their money. Okay. I have some Facebook that a faithful follower handles for me because I don't like Facebook. I don't have anything to do with it. He takes care of it. And I have Twitter for years, but I get very little from Twitter. On Twitter, I get somewhere between 30 and 100 or 120 views a day, depending on how they like what the material is. Okay. And on Facebook, let's put it this way, with Facebook and Twitter combined, it's about 300 views a day. Then I get YouTube, and I don't have Instagram because I don't know how I could teach Bible on Instagram. It doesn't make sense. And I have Telegram, and I have no idea how many views I get off of Telegram. They don't tell you, they won't let you know. So I think people like it at Telegram, but I don't know. So I've got about 500 or 600 followers over there. I lost about 100 when I started teaching stuff they didn't like. See, one of the ways I lose people is I teach them who the daughter of Babylon is. Okay. Another way I lose people is I teach them the church doesn't follow the Bible. They don't want to hear it. The fact that it's in the scriptures doesn't register with them. They just don't want to hear it, you know. And, you know, oh, there were no missile attacks today. No, no, it was another day. Sorry, it didn't happen. So she was reading another day. So this is what now if I was going to teach them the church is good, or all I had to do was not teach the church was bad. That's all I had to do, and not teach them true end times prophecy. What would I teach them? I don't know. uh, not teach them they're not going to reign with Yeshua with a rod of iron over Israel. The scripture is Israel will reign with a rod of iron over the Goyim, over the nations. They want to reverse it. So they're going to come down and hit us with the rod of iron. And of course, I can't possibly sell people on the pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib rapture. It's all insane. Yeshua 4 times said everybody goes up at the same day, the last day. Says that in John 6:39, John 6:40, John 6:44, John 6:54. And these people ignore it because they don't fear God. He says, if you reject knowledge, I will reject you. When he's talking about rejecting knowledge, he doesn't mean you don't believe what the Wall Street Journal said. He means his word. That's the true knowledge. Okay. So they have no fear of God. They blindly are convinced of their salvation. And, you know, I don't play into that. I'm not in the world system, so I suffer, but just understand what they make. And some of them are just mom and pa, it's the guy and the wife, or the wife and the husband that do this. And some of them that are larger have a staff, but they don't have like 10 people. They have 2, 3 people, 4 people, maybe, very small amount of staff that does a lot of the social media for them, um, does a lot of correspondence answering for them, goes with them on trips for speaking tours and travel. We'll stop in all the ports Paul stopped at, go travel around Israel, and we go to the holy sites, and I'll teach you the scriptures on that. They do that. If you got one plane load of people, um, not even a great big plane, a small plane load, a real small plane load of people coming here for a 10-day tour with you, you're going to make about $100,000 probably. That's all you got to do for the year. There used to be people here that would do that. That was all they did. They ran one tour a year, and they had people feeding it to them. They probably were kicking back. Back then, they made about 75,000 for a small plane, and now it's at least 100. And that's what they did. But they're not doing a lot of tours with the war, So instead, they get a block of rooms or cabins on a cruise ship. So they might grab 100 cabins or 150 cabins, and they get a discounted price, which just goes in their pocket, and they sell the tour to the people, and the people book it at a higher price, which goes in their pocket. They work with a travel agent, they get the money somehow, and they go on the tour. Um, and they bring their assistants with them, and they'll go and get a suite. The cruise line probably gives them, if they book 100 cabins, they probably give them the suite for free. And I wouldn't be surprised if they brought their own chef, but that would be too ostentatious. So they just go in there, and they get 1 or 2 cabins for their staff, cheap cabins, and they the people are on there, and then they have a meeting usually in the morning. It could be after breakfast, and they talk about the day. They're going to go on a tour together, and if they're stopped at a port, they're going to all go off and go see something, and the teacher will go with them. Or uh, it might be they're going to get together in the afternoon for a Bible study or a social time or whatever they're going to do. And they just they might have a free day where they stop at a port and there's nothing there biblical, and they just do what you want to do. And you know we're going to meet after dinner. We're going to have praise and worship and Bible, or so. That's what they do. You know, they play this same game with singles Christian cruises, where they book Christians who want to meet other Christians. Church people want to meet other church people, and they go on a tour, on a cruise, and they arrange for them to meet each other in an open area with other people there, and stuff like that. It's the same thing. You got to get a lot of people to book, and I think you got to pay up front. So these guys got enough money to pay up front to get the reservations cheap, and they know they're going to sell 100 cabins or more. They know they're going to do it because they got so many people, and they book it early, and they might be able to get a refund with a big penalty from the cruise company if it doesn't go or something. I don't know. I don't know the little details, but that's what they do. the amount of money it costs you in Israel to get a tour bus, a guide, a licensed guide, and put the people in the hotels with the meals is they have three tiers. They have budget, mid range, and luxury, and it doesn't cost them very much to do it. I would think it's maybe at most 100 a day for mid range, which is what most of them do. With Americans and a lot of Europeans from England and people from Canada and Great Britain, they need the mid range. They can't put them in the budget. The budget is if you got people from Asia and Africa, they'll go budget maybe. Luxury is ostentatious. Some people probably do it, but they don't. Mid range. So you'll have a hotel that's not going to look like a great hotel. The rooms will be small. It'll have a TV. It'll be air conditioning. The windows may not open. It'll have phones, have a bathroom, have a nice bed, it'll have closets. You might have one of those things where you can get a bag of peanuts for $25 or soda or beer or liquor or something. The bar, the food bar, the drink bar. And it'll give you usually two meals. They'll have, when they check in, they'll have a dinner. And then when they leave in the morning, they'll have a breakfast. Lunch, they got to do on the road. They go to the hotel, they get there by 5, 6 o'clock so the people can go up, take a shower, come down and catch dinner, which is often a buffet. It's not always. And then they have a meeting after dinner and they discuss what they did that day and what they're going to do the next day. And they have a little fellowship, they all get together. And then they break up. Some of the people will stay up late and get a taxi and go see something and stay out late at night, and others will just go back to the room and you know get on the internet and do email and talk to people on WhatsApp or whatever they want to do. And then they go to sleep and they wake up in the morning reasonably early. They're probably up by 6. And then they grab a breakfast or they take a shower, grab breakfast, whatever they want, and they pack. And the bus is outside the hotel. They take their suitcase and there's the bus driver and they put it on the sidewalk by the bus and he loads them in. And everybody gets together. They go to the bathroom, get all this stuff, and they get on the bus. And the bus has Wi-Fi, and they show movies of the site they're driving to on the way over there, and they have the guide speaking and talking about it. And they go to the site and they run around, and the next night they're in another hotel. So they got to unpack, bring the stuff back upstairs, and then eat, take a shower, go to sleep, and that's their routine. So they're never really around Israelis. That's the point I want to make. So they come here and they see the place, and they have next to no contact with Israelis unless they're booking them for visiting a messianic congregation so the congregation can get the offerings. And that doesn't usually happen too much. It happens, but not too much. And what else? That's how they do it. It's hard work. I mean, you're knocked out. You're in 10 days usually. It could be 7, could be 10, could be 14. 10's probably about right. Could be a week. And you're knocked out because you're going with them every day. Um, and people are constantly asking you questions, and you know it's hard. Sometimes you're going to disappear, like they're out of sight, and you can disappear for a few hours and take care of your phone calls and your business, and but most of the time you're there with them. It knocks you out. Now some of these guys could actually duck out for a day or two during the tour. Some of them will try that. Some will get away with it, but that doesn't go well with the people. That's a business. So these people, I'm telling you, they're millionaires. Okay, they're millionaires. These people have been doing it. A lot of them 10, 20 years. They're millionaires. Okay, some of them were in Israel. Well, they're still in Israel. A lot of them, they can't stay here continuously. They got to come and go, but they could buy a house here, or make arrangements to get a house. They can work it out through somebody or whatever. They got nice big houses, that cost $1 million. Some of them build a conference center where they could have conferences. Um, and they get cars. They buy like a car that most Israelis could never afford. Okay, and they don't live anywhere near like Israelis. A lot of them get rare, expensive wines. They drink wine. They go out to fine dinners. And they're always flying around. They never stay in Israel very much because it's not as nice living here as it is elsewhere. So they like to go to Europe a lot. It's a quick trip to Europe. Italy's 2.5 hours. France is about 3.5. They go over to Europe and they get themselves, they'll fly business or first class. Nobody really knows. Nobody really sees them. And then they get a nice hotel. They're not going to stay in a $1,200 night hotel because it's too gaudy, but they're going to probably stay at a, $400, 500. And they're going to eat in nice restaurants and they're going to buy nice things. And yeah, they do stuff like that. They just got to get out of sight, you know. And then when they go to Europe, they book dates and they go speak in churches or do music in churches and they get offerings. So it probably pays for their trip to Europe. And they don't just go to Europe, they'll go to, some of them go to Asia, some will go to South America. It depends where they want to go. Europe is the favorite place because it's really nice. Um, and they like that. It's safe, pretty safe, and they enjoy it. And the flight times are not that bad. So um, they don't ever expose the shortcomings of the Bible and stuff like that. The kingpin for false doctrine is Daniel 9:24. How they have obliterated that by making it say 70 weeks to promote their 490 theory. It doesn't say that in every single Hebrew manuscript that we could ever find. It says Shavim Shavim, 270s. It doesn't, that's the reality of it. It's not 70 weeks. So they mess everything up, you know? And from there, they build their Schofield. Most of the stuff is built to match Schofield. I think Schofield came after and wrote his, Darby and Schofield wrote their study Bibles to match the church teachings, the pre-trib and all that stuff, which came before they did. They just glorified it. Okay, not the other way around, because the translations, even going back to Wycliffe in the 1300s and Tyndale in the 1500s, cater to the Darby Schofield doctrine. So the doctrine came before Darby and Schofield. That's what I'm trying to say. So that's my plot in life. That's what the Lord has me doing. So will the app help bring new people out of the darkness? I don't know. I don't know how they would get the app. I don't know who they are. They don't know who I am. How are they going to get it? I could, in the YouTube, I could put a message up there with a link to download it. I could say that. These things are small. The app would be about the size of a one color photo, like that, nothing. So they could email me, and I just email it to them. That's all I got to do. I don't have to waste time and money with a website with downloads and stuff. I just email it to them. The problem with the false believers, if they see a website with downloads, they just get bots to go there and download it constantly and make the bandwidth go up, which makes the website get rid of me and stuff like that. If they just email me and I email it back to them, it's not a lot of problem for me. I just attach it to the email and send it. That's all. It's easy. It's not difficult. So I could do that. I don't know what to do. I don't want to go ahead and do something that the Lord's not telling me to do. He's not telling me to do it, and He's not telling me not to do it. So I'm confused. What I usually tell people is, stand. When you've done all you can, stand. If you don't have marching orders, don't march. You're a soldier in God's army. Why are you marching without orders? See, I'm not getting the orders to do this. I don't think I ever got orders to do Telegram, but I did it. I don't believe he ever punished me for it. Sometimes I bemoan doing it because it's so much work, but it's good at the same time. I don't mind it that much. I never got chastened for it. So maybe this is the same kind of thing. If you want to do it, do it. I don't care, he's saying, but I'm not telling you to do it. And keep praying. Maybe I'll get a better answer. I don't know. I don't want to push him into an answer he doesn't want. Not that I can, I can. But, you know, I don't think he's going to. You wrote a thing about prophecy. I'm chastening you for that. I don't, that's what I do every day here. I don't think he's going to punish me for that. I tried running a website, putting prophecy on the website. I didn't do good with that. Very, 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 very few people came. It's just a waste of money. Um, I don't know. I don't know what to do. So I know I can do it, and I have a feeling I want to do it because it's cool. To make an app, that's cool. I like it. But I could just play games and have them make an app on anything. You know, make an app for who knows what food. Best Jewish cooking app. And just for fun. Um, I don't need to do this. This is a bit of a serious piece of work. So I'm confused and I don't know what to do. I don't like the idea of just doing an app just on prophecy, but I'm really here to teach the prophecies of Israel, so why not? And that's what I spend a lot of my time on here. I do cover the other things like how to live your life as a believer, the things you can do and you can't do, and all that. And I do spiritual warfare. I could do an app on spiritual warfare, but it would be a rather brief, abbreviated app. You'd be looking at maybe, 15 scriptures, 20 maximum or something, 30, 40 verses, maybe, not much of an app, but I could do it. Um, I don't know. That's why I keep asking for prayer. I don't know what to do. If he's not telling me to do it, I'm not so interested in doing it because I don't think it's going to bear good fruit. It's not going to bear bad fruit. It's not going to be a punishment, but maybe there's other things I could do that the Lord would rather me do. So pray for that. If there's other things I should be doing with my time, maybe that's where I should go. See what I'm saying? Maybe there's a better idea for things to put in an app than this. Don't know. Don't know. Basically, I just dictate it into the iPad, and I have the AI retain it, put it up on the cloud. I'd have to proof it. Well, I'd probably do it in my own one of my own file things, a note thing, and dictate it, and then spell correct it, grammar correct it, make sure it's right, get it all put together, and then take that piece and cut and paste it into uh, the AI and give it to it and tell it to hold it in memory until I get all the other pieces put together. Or I could get all the other pieces together, and then that'd probably be better. Just do it all at one time. I could do, I guess, get Microsoft Word, pay a few bucks, whatever they charge. I don't know what it is anymore, and get it activated again, and then just build it in Word or some other program that's a free version. I don't know. Could do that. Uh, Maybe, I don't know. So I look to you guys for prayer. Okay, I'm going to get a prayer up for us. My Heavenly Father, remember this thing is driven by offerings, okay? And I'm spending money on books now, and download digital books and stuff. Okay. So my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I pray for me and my wife and the true believers and their households. I pray we all have your peace, safety, protection, joy, calm, rest, faith, and wisdom abundantly. And I pray we have strength, stamina, and endurance, and your healing and recuperative power flowing through us, healing what needs to be healing. And I pray for us and our animals and pets to be safe, secure, and happy, healthy, and whole. And I pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And I pray for those of us that need a place to live to get a place to live, a good place to live. Those of us that need work, we get good work. Those of us that need clients and customers for our business, we get those as well. And I pray we all understand more about the Bible. And I pray I could do better videos, and that I should know if I should do apps like I talked about or not do apps, or if I should do different kind of apps than what I'm thinking about. Or should I do it in a book and then put it in an app or digital? I don't know. I don't know what to do. An app sounds better than a book. It's more advanced. You can search it easier, I guess. Okay, and I pray for guidance and direction, and I pray for me and all of us. Um, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you as believers can agree with this, um, even if it's a video. Please, for me, pray that I have good fortune and, well, not good fortune, that I have good success in pursuing the public and private, the welfare system for myself with my health issues and all of this stuff. Appreciate the prayers for that. Uh, well, I can pray. You can agree. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, uh, I pray, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, for help and success in pursuing the public and private welfare, social support that I'm pursuing in Israel. I pray you would help me to get all the things I need from them that I have coming. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And please agree with that. And I'll do a little spiritual warfare. For us, it'll be a little different. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I pray for me and my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I loose from me and my wife and all the true believers in our households and families. I loose off us or out of us any unclean spirits in any of us as immediately loosed out of us, kicked out, never to return again. And I pray that if there's any witchcraft or sorcery targeted or directed at us or any of the people, the families, the households, it's also cast null and void, of no value, no effect forever, and shall never return, even in something similar. It shall never return. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And that's what I got for today. I hope you got something out of it. So I plan on continuing to do the translations, and then in the new translation, the more clearer, cleaner translations from the old Greek and the old Hebrew, do the Bible teaching. Okay. And also show you what the difference is from what we're used to from the English and from the reality of the real historical texts. Okay, so I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm out.